John Helldiver had learned to trust three things: the weight of a loaded rifle, the reliability of orbital fire when coordinates were correct, and the certainty that any mission described as manageable had already gone bad before the briefing ended. What he did not trust was silence after victory. The destroyer hung over the bruised blue curve of a conquered world, its hull blackened in streaks where illuminate lances had bitten too deep and been patched too fast. The battle behind it still glowed in orbit, like the dying memory of a storm. Wreckage spun in slow arcs across the darkness. Shattered alien prisms, severed drone lattices, twisted human metal, and vapor trails fading into nothing. Beneath the destroyer's keel, the planet they had just saved smoldered through an atmosphere cut open by fire. The tactical deck smelled like hot circuitry, oil, and the metallic tang of overworked life support systems. Crew officers moved with the hollow energy of people still functioning only because the mission log had not yet given them permission to collapse. John stood at the forward holo table in full armor, helmet tucked under one arm, looking at the casualty feed with the expression of a man who had expected worse and hated that he had been right. His suit still carried dust from boarding actions, alien residue from close quarters breaches, and dried blood that was not entirely his. A heavy cape, scorched and torn at the edge, hung from one shoulder plate, sidearm holstered, primary rifle locked across his back. Stratagem gauntlet still live. He looked less like a triumphant soldier than a weapon that had not yet remembered it was allowed to rest. Major order confirmed complete, the operations officer announced, voice hoarse. Primary illuminate assault lattice destroyed. Surviving hostile signatures scattered. Civilian extraction corridors reopened on 3 continents. Command relay says to proceed to post-action resupply and refit. A few people on the bridge laughed in disbelief. Refit, muttered the chief engineer over an open channel. That's a cute word for replacing half the ship. John did not smile. He kept reading. Destroyer integrity. Compromised, but functional. Ammunition. Sufficient for one more ugly fight, maybe 2 if the crew stopped, pretending warnings mattered. Eagle support racks. Damaged but online. Orbital barrage systems. Green. Point defense net. Scarred. Intermittent. Still deadly. Vehicle bay. 1 walker destroyed. 1 crippled. 1 operational. Hangar deck. Depressurized sections sealed. Reinforcement pods. Depleted. Medical bay. Overcapacity. They had won, which in practice meant they were still alive and not yet under fresh orders. Plot the jump, John said. Let's leave before command changes its mind. Navigation confirmed. Reactor synchronization began. The destroyer's spine vibrated with the familiar rising pressure of faster-than-light transition. Across the bridge, crew posture subtly shifted from combat strain to disciplined hope. A jump meant distance. Distance meant breathing room. Breathing room meant the illusion of safety. The illusion lasted 13 seconds. The first sign was not an alarm, but a visual distortion across the main canopy. Starlight ahead of the ship bent sideways as though some invisible hand had dragged wet paint across the void. Then came the alarms, not one system failing, but too many systems disagreeing at once. Helm, report. Slip envelope instability. Cause? Unknown. The destroyer lurched. Console spat sparks. Overhead lights flickered from white to amber to a hard red pulse. The deck shuddered like an animal hit through the ribs. FTL corridor is not holding, navigation shouted. We've got dimensional shear across the nose. John jammed his helmet on and locked the seals. The bridge became colder, sharper, cleaner through the suit's filters. A tactical overlay flooded his visor. Internal fires, pressure warnings, structural stress. Reactor output spiking into the red. Cut the jump, he ordered. We can't. Controls aren't responding. The stars outside vanished. For one impossible moment, the destroyer moved through a place that was not darkness and not light. Angular flashes rippled past the hull. Layers of geometry rotated through each other at wrong depths. The ship's sensors lost the meaning of distance. The crew lost the meaning of up. Several men and women screamed over open comms, not because they were injured, but because their eyes insisted they were seeing the ship from outside while still standing inside it. The chief engineer's voice burst through the chaos. This is not normal slip collapse. Something's folding us off vector. I'm reading destination lock with coordinate mismatch. Same endpoint logic, wrong frame of reference. John grabbed the side of the hollow table as the destroyer bucked again. Translate that into words useful in combat. It means, the engineer snapped, we may be arriving where we aimed, but not where we belong. Then the universe hit them. The destroyer tore out of FTL in a spray of white static and fragmented light. Real space slammed back into place. Gravity stabilized with a bone-deep thud. Systems rebooted in waves across the ship. Status. Alive, somebody answered. For the moment, that was enough. Then the main canopy cleared. Earth filled half the forward view. Not the Earth, John knew. Too many orbital structures. Wrong defense grid geometry. Different station architecture. Strange traffic patterns. Different satellite spread. The planet below was blue and white and heartbreakingly familiar in the most dangerous possible way. Familiar enough to invite the wrong assumptions. The bridge fell quiet. Navigation was first to speak. That is our destination coordinate shell. Relative planetary mass consistent. Lunar distance within expected deviation. A pause, but the local network signatures are completely unknown. Unknown ships were already turning toward them. At first, John thought they were defense craft from some classified Allied command. Then magnification resolved hull lines he had never seen before. Cleaner, broader, differently proportioned than any fleet standard he recognized. Not elegant, exactly. Practical. Hardened. Built by a military that expected ugly wars in vacuum and had the budget to prepare for them. IFF found nothing. Contact density increasing, Tactical said. Multiple unidentified warships in high orbit. Local transmissions flooding all bands. Some are targeting us. Another officer stiffened at his console. There's a battle over the planet. Large scale. Urban strike signatures over a coastal African region, marking one major population center under heavy assault. A red icon bloomed over the planet below. New Mombasa. The translation software guessed after wrestling with intercepted traffic. John stared at the planet, then at the incoming fleet tags, then at the orbital fire descending toward the city. He had completed a brutal mission against one alien invasion only to arrive in the middle of another. The universe, he decided, had no sense of pacing. Open every ear we have, he said. I want language models chewing through all transmissions. Weapons free only on confirmed hostiles. Do not fire on local defense forces unless fired upon and we have no choice. Sir, Tactical said carefully. We don't know who the hostiles are. John looked down through the canopy at the bright scars opening over the city. Then start with whoever's invading the civilians. Below them, New Mombasa burned under a sky crowded with impossible machines. The city spread along the coast in steel, glass, concrete, maglev lines, and terraces of white sunlight now stained orange by explosions. Smoke columns rose in jagged plumes between towers. Evacuation, traffic jammed skyways and bridges. Anti-air batteries on rooftops hammered upward in frantic pulses. Something massive and alien hung above the city, like a blade suspended over a throat. A vessel too large, too smooth, too confident. Smaller craft swarmed under it, dropping infantry and fire into the streets. On the destroyer, Translated signals began to resolve. Emergency, military traffic, civilian distress, air defense coordination, naval command challenges. One repeated phrase kept surfacing under the noise. Unidentified contact, unidentified contact, unidentified contact. Then another voice cut through, disciplined and urgent. Unknown warship exiting FTL near engagement volume. This is United Nations Space Command Naval Control. Identify yourself immediately. Power down weapons and transmit intent, or you will be classified hostile. John exhaled once. At least somebody here still asks before shooting. He keyed the channel. UNS, Naval Control. This is Destroyer. Call sign Resolute Vow. We experienced transit malfunction and arrived off vector. We are not aligned with your hostile force. Repeat, we are not part of the invasion. We are assessing the situation. There was a long pause from the other end, the kind that suggested several people were yelling away from the microphone. Resolute Vow. UNS Control replied, clipped and suspicious. Your ship profile does not match any registered human design. You exited FTL inside a combat perimeter during a planetary assault. You will hold position and submit telemetry. John watched more fire rain into New Mombasa. Negative on holding position while civilians are getting hit. The reply came back sharper. That was not a request. Tactical leaned toward him. Multiple local ships locking us. And the invaders? Also locking us. They don't seem to care who we are. John nodded once. That at least was familiar. Broadcast this to UNSC control. We can debate jurisdiction after we stop the people glassing your city. He cut the channel before they could answer and turned to tactical. Mark the biggest alien ship over New Mombasa. A crimson target reticle formed in the hollow. Can orbital barrage punch through? Maybe. Depends on shield behavior. Unknown tech. Then we learn. Below, on the streets, people were already dying without the luxury of uncertainty. A troop transport screamed over New Mombasa's skyline, trailing smoke. It clipped a tower, split apart, and rained debris into a boulevard choked with abandoned vehicles. Marines poured out of wrecked cover positions, firing up at descending alien craft. Civilians ran in every direction at once, the natural geometry of panic. Sirens fought a losing battle against the thunder of bombardment. In the shadow of a shattered transit terminal, a squad of ODSTs crouched behind an overturned carrier, helmets blackened, ammunition low, watching an impossible new ship appear above the battle. Tell me I'm not seeing that, one of them said. Their sergeant keyed magnification through his visor. You're seeing it. Covenant? Does that look Covenant to you? One of the troopers gave a humorless snort. At this point, I'd settle for anything that shoots at the same people we do. High above them, the Resolute Vow angled its scarred hull toward the alien assault carrier hanging over the city. On the bridge, a fire control officer swallowed hard. Orbital strike solution ready. John planted both gauntleted hands on the table. Single precise burst. I don't want to cook the whole district. Against a target that size? We are not flattening the city to save it. Fire. The destroyer shuddered as the orbital guns answered. A line of white fury speared down through the atmosphere. For one breathless second, everyone on the bridge thought they had missed. Then the beam struck the alien carrier's flank and ripped a molten seam across its lower hull. Blue-white shield energy flared around the wound, bending, cracking, and shedding sparks into the clouds. The great ship lurched sideways over New Mombasa. Secondary detonations flashed along its belly. On the ground, every surviving pair of eyes snapped upward. In UNSC Orbital Command, silence fell across 3 operations pits. Then everyone started shouting. Unknown vessel has engaged Covenant cruiser. Repeat that. It fired on the Covenant. Confirm energy type. Doesn't matter. Confirm friend or don't. Back on the Resolute Vow, Tactical raised his voice over the cheering that had broken out on half the bridge. Local defense ships have paused targeting. Covenant contacts are reprioritizing us. We've got inbound interceptors. John finally allowed himself half a grin behind the helmet. Good. We've introduced ourselves. The first wave hit 2 minutes later. Alien fighters tore in from the carrier's shadow, fast and sharp-edged, launching plasma in elegant killing arcs. The destroyer's point defense grid woke up with vicious enthusiasm. Autocannons stitched fire across the void. Missile racks spat counter-salvos. Bright fragments of burning craft spun away in widening trails. One interceptor got too close. John watched it slash across the destroyer's port side, shields flaring against the hull before a dorsal battery caught it and reduced it to glittering debris. Helm, rotate us. Keep the guns on their cruiser. Tactical, cycle the heavy barrage. Engineering, tell me the drive won't explode if I ask for another combat burn. Engineering replied instantly. It absolutely might, sir. Noted. Get me something more encouraging in 30 seconds. A new voice cut into the comnet, broader and calmer than naval control, carrying the weight of someone used to speaking while people obeyed. Unknown destroyer. This is UNSC Fleet Command Element Actual. Since you seem committed, coordinate your fire with us instead of freelancing. We have frigates moving to exploit the damage you opened. John switched channels. About time. Do not mistake temporary cooperation for trust. Wouldn't dream of it. Targeting data flashed across the screen, a local warship feeding them, firing lanes against the Covenant carrier and its escort screen. The style was different from anything John had seen, but the meaning was universal. Shoot here, now, before they recover. Accepted, he said. For the next several minutes, suspicion became secondary to survival. The Resolute Vow and UNSC warships fought as if they had drilled together for years and hated every minute of it. Human vessels of two different universes poured fire into the same enemy. Mac rounds and plasma exchanges crossed with destroyer barrages. Alien shields flared under converging punishment. A Covenant corvette broke apart over the ocean. One UNSC frigate took a hit amidships and fell out of formation, trailing atmosphere. The Resolute Vow rolled to interpose its scarred bulk between another frigate and a plasma lance, taking the impact along already damaged plating. Warning runes flared across John's visor. Armor breach on deck 12. Seal it. It is sealed. Then it's not a problem. Below, New Mombasa bought a few more minutes of life. Inside the city, the ground war worsened. The initial orbital hit had disrupted the Covenant carrier's pattern, but it had also enraged everything beneath it. Dropships came in lower. Infantry swarmed wider. Heavy walkers smashed through road barriers and civic plazas. Marine units fragmented across districts. Smoke turned noon into rust-colored dusk. In an underground transit hub turned improvised aid station, wounded soldiers sat against tiled walls while medics worked by emergency strip lights. Every few seconds, the ceiling trembled with impacts from above. A naval intelligence officer in a blood-stained dress uniform listened to intercepted command traffic and tried to build a coherent picture out of disaster. Orbital says the unknown ship is fighting the Covenant. One exhausted Marine laughed despite himself. Maybe God finally got tired of watching. Or it's setting us up. That thing just punched a hole in their cruiser. The intelligence officer looked up at the vibrating ceiling. Then for now, I don't care if it arrived from hell. On the surface, a Pelican gunship skimmed low through a canyon of towers with missiles burning behind it. Inside, a mixed team of Marines and Special Operations personnel braced against the turbulence. Among them sat a Spartan in green armor, motionless except for the minute turns of his helmet as he absorbed the battle unfolding around him. The pilot's voice crackled through the compartment. Command wants eyes on the new ship's people if any of them hit the ground. Repeat, if they deploy troops, we make contact before the Covenant do. A Marine near the rear hatch muttered, "You say that like the Covenant need permission." The Spartan said nothing. He simply checked his weapon and waited. Back in orbit, the Covenant carrier over New Mombasa had begun to drift, one flank slagged and venting. Its shield still shimmered, but unevenly now. UNSC command wanted it finished before it could stabilize. John wanted the same. "Charge the heaviest strike we've got that won't split our spine," he ordered. "That narrows the menu." "Good. Means we won't waste time deciding." UNSC control returned on a tighter, more direct link. "Resolute vow. This is Admiral Harper. We're committing everything we can to crack that cruiser. If you've got another miracle shot, now is when I stop asking questions and start thanking you later." John glanced sideways. "See? Trust building." No one on his bridge laughed. They were too busy. "We have one shot," Tactical warned. "After this, the capacitors need time we may not have. Make it count." The strike that followed turned the clouds over New Mombasa white. The Resolute Vow fired first, a focused spear of descending violence aimed precisely through the wound it had already cut. A heartbeat later, UNSC ships chained their own attacks through the same opening. The Covenant carrier shields collapsed in a blossom of blue fire. The next impacts went straight into the hull. The massive alien ship shuddered. Its underside ruptured. Flames the size of buildings rolled along its spine. For one impossible moment, it seemed to hang there, refusing the laws of damage through sheer arrogance. Then it began to fall apart. Chunks of incandescent metal sheared free and plunged toward the sea and shoreline. Secondary craft broke formation in panic. The city below roared, not in celebration, not yet, but in the savage relief of prey watching one predator bleed. "Direct kill. Not confirmed," Tactical said, "but it's crippled." "Good enough. Shift to support pattern. Start swatting anything headed into the city." A fresh hail of comm traffic arrived, and language models finally caught up with most of it. Names, units, grid references, fragmented reports from ground forces, pleas for evac, threat warnings, and under all of it, the hard-clipped rhythm of a military refusing collapse because there were still people left to save. John listened for 5 seconds and made a choice. "Prep a drop shuttle." Several heads turned. "Sir?" asked the operations officer. "You're going down there?" He sealed his rifle to his chest plate and locked fresh magazines into his harness. "We've got civilians under an invasion zone, unknown allied ground forces, and hostile aliens already in the streets. That's not a bridge problem." "Respectfully, sir, you are the ranking field asset on this ship. Then I'll represent us personally." He started for the lift. Halfway there, he stopped. "Keep the ship alive. Coordinate with UNSC. If anything big comes through orbit, burn it. If the drive starts to tear reality again, tell engineering I was very disappointed in them." "Yes, sir." As the lift doors shut, he caught one last view of Earth through the bridge canopy. Not his Earth. Still human. Still under attack. That was enough. The shuttle punched through atmosphere under defensive fire, riding a corridor the destroyer had opened with point defense and orbital suppression. New Mombasa expanded beneath them in layers of smoke, glass, coastline, and violence. Pieces of the dying Covenant carrier burned across the upper sky like a second meteor shower. Inside the troop bay, John sat alone opposite a rack of supplies and weapons cases, helmeted now, every seal green. Dropship turbulence rattled the cabin. The pilot, a destroyer flight officer, too smart to ask questions, kept one eye on the instruments and the other on the city. "Local airspace is madness," she said. "We can put you near a UNSC distress cluster 2 clicks from the old city sector." "Do it. Signal says they're boxed in. Then they'll be easy to find." She gave a short breath that might have been a laugh. You really talk like that all the time? Only when falling into another universe. The shuttle banked hard, avoiding a plume of anti-air fire from somewhere below. Touchdown in 40 seconds. John pulled the charging handle on his rifle and watched the weapon's status light cycle alive. Different world, different war, same job. The shuttle slammed onto a fractured overpass amid sparks and flying debris. The ramp dropped. Heat and noise hit like a wall. New Mombasa was war-made vertical. A boulevard below burned between wrecked civilian transports and smashed concrete dividers. Covenant infantry moved through the smoke in disciplined bursts. Human forces were pinned in the skeleton of a half-collapsed tram station, trading shots from shattered pillars and emergency barricades. Above them, a damaged billboard flickered through evacuation instructions no one had time to read. John stepped off the ramp into the middle of it, and the city seemed, for 1 second, to hesitate in surprise. Then he opened fire. The first burst took an alien trooper through the chest and spun it off a traffic barrier. John moved straight down the ramp, rifle hammering in controlled rhythm. A second hostile dropped. A third tried to flank through burning cars and vanished in a grenade burst that turned the vehicle beside it into a sheet of rising flame. The pinned Marines saw him and reacted with the instant confusion of soldiers forced to triage the impossible. One shouted, "Friendly?" John answered by killing the alien, trying to spear the man from behind. "Close enough," he said. He crossed the open street under plasma fire, armor flaring under glancing hits. His rifle changed targets as fast as thought. A heavy alien weapon emplacement barked from an upper walkway, pinning down the human line. John slapped a stratagem code into his gauntlet and threw the beacon without breaking stride. The Marines stared at the glowing device, skidding under the walkway. One of them yelled, "What the hell is that?" John ducked behind a broken maglev support. Down. A second later, the air screamed. Precision ordnance struck from the sky with surgical fury, vaporizing the walkway, the emplacement, and every hostile within lethal radius. Dust and fragments rained through the avenue. The surviving Marines just stared. Their sergeant, visor cracked and sleeve burned black, was first to recover. "I don't know who you are, but keep doing that." John stepped into their cover position. Up close, he saw the fatigue in their faces, the grime, the practiced terror being held at bay by discipline. Good soldiers, different insignia, same eyes. "You're cut off?" Somewhere along the waterfront, with evac boats finally taking on survivors under covering fire. Chief and John found a moment behind a battered seawall while pelicans screamed overhead. "You don't fight like any force I know," Chief said. "I can return the compliment." Chief looked out at the harbor, where shattered Covenant debris hissed in the surf. "Your ship appeared out of nowhere, knew how to hit them, then dropped you into the worst ground sector on the coast. That suggests training, experience, or a very strange kind of bad luck. Why choose?" Chief turned slightly. "You planning to stay?" John followed his gaze to the horizon where smoke smudged the sunset. "I was planning to leave the last universe on schedule. That didn't work out." "That isn't an answer." "No," John said. "It's the honest version." Chief accepted that. On a higher command deck, somewhere above the planet, Admiral Harper studied live feeds of the unknown armored soldier fighting alongside his people and made the kind of decision only war makes reasonable. "Open a direct line to the Spartan and the unknown asset," he said. "If they're already in the same street, I'd rather they hear our mistrust later." The channel opened with a crackle. "Ground team, this is Fleet Command. Covenant reinforcements are shifting inland. We've got a narrowing window to evacuate remaining civilians from sectors 4 through 7. "Unknown asset John, was it?" John keyed in. "Depends who's asking. The man currently deciding whether your ship remains a temporary ally or becomes tomorrow's classified nightmare." John considered that. Go on. Harper ignored the tone. Your destroyer just bought us breathing room in orbit. If you and the Spartan can stabilize the waterfront corridor, I can get more people out. Chief answered first. Understood. John rose from cover and checked his rifle one more time. Then stop talking and move the boats. The Admiral almost sounded amused. I can see why you two found common ground. The next push was the ugliest yet. Covenant troops descended in force toward the evacuation lanes, angry, organized, and no longer willing to underestimate the new variable in the field. Air support strafed the waterfront. Snipers occupied hotel ruins. Fresh armor came through the financial district like metal beasts. Chief and John moved to meet it before it could hit the evac columns. By then, the Marines with them had stopped asking what John was. They had downgraded the mystery to a practical concern for later. In combat, usefulness outranked explanation. Street by street, they gave the city back minute by minute. Chief dropped a sniper from a balcony 300 meters out without breaking stride. John blew a hole through a barricade and led a countercharge straight through the dust cloud. Marines followed, because at some point, disbelief had become momentum. Pelicans landed, loaded, lifted, returned. Civilians stumbled aboard in waves. At the height of it, a surviving shard of the crippled Covenant carrier above the city broke apart and began to fall directly toward the harbor district. Fleet Command shouted warnings. Ground teams looked up. For a second, the entire battle seemed to pause around the descending mass. John didn't. Resolute vow, he barked. I need that debris broken before it hits the evac zone. The answer came with static and strain. Main guns are cycling. We may only crack it once. Once is enough. From high orbit, the destroyer fired. The falling fragments split in the sky into flaming sections that plunged into ocean and empty industrial blocks instead of the packed harbor. A wall of steam rolled inward. The evac boats rocked, but survived. Around the waterfront, exhausted soldiers and civilians stared upward through the heat haze at the scarred black ship that had arrived from nowhere and decided, for reasons still unclear, to make itself useful. The final civilian transport lifted at dusk. UNSC forces withdrew by controlled stages, fighting backward to loaded craft and armored fallback positions. Covenant remnants still held parts of the city, but the immediate slaughter had been blunted. The waterfront did not become a mass grave. In that hour, that counted as victory. On a rooftop overlooking smoke and surf, Chief and John stood for a brief moment while the last Pelican banked toward the carrier group offshore. Neither man was built for speeches. Below them, New Mombasa glowed with fire and emergency lights. You saved people today, Chief said. John looked at the city, at the shapes moving among ruin, at the soldiers still carrying those who could not walk. So did you. Chief gave the faintest nod. You'll have questions waiting for you. I'd be worried if I didn't. And answers? John looked up toward orbit, where his destroyer held station under the guns and suspicion of a world not his own. A few, he said, none of them simple. Chief seemed unsurprised by that. Good. Simple usually means wrong. For the first time since the slip malfunction, John felt the edge of something almost like certainty. He had not reached his intended destination. He had reached a war for someone like him that was close enough to purpose, far above them. The resolute vow transmitted new alignment scans into the dark, searching for any path back to the universe it had lost. Around it, UNSC warships maintained a wary escort, not hostile, not trusting, human. For tonight, that would do. And over the battered coast of this Earth, two different futures held the line together while the city behind them learned, one rescued breath at a time, that sometimes help arrived from the wrong stars and still counted.